This week in the security news, Linux process injection, threat actors need training too, a Linux device capable of practically anything, the internet of webcams, hacking cheap devices, automating exploitation with local AI models, a lame C2 infrastructure, the smallest SSH backdoor, your RDP is on the internet. These are not the high severity bugs you were looking for. Low-hanging fruit, your TV is spying on you again. No such thing as offensive security. MCPs and RCEs, browser extensions that collect your AI chats, and flooding TikTok with AI influencers. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. This episode is brought to you by Adaptive Security, the first cybersecurity company backed by OpenAI. AI has fundamentally reshaped the threat landscape. Today, the greatest risk isn't someone breaking into your systems, it's someone breaking into your trust. Deep fake voices joining your video calls. AI-crafted phishing emails that perfectly mimic your executives. Even synthetic job applicants entering through the front door. Adaptive Security is designed to counter these new realities. The company delivers real-time attack simulations that show security teams exactly what modern AI-driven threats look and sound like, and prepares them to respond effectively. Learn more at securityweekly.com/adaptive. Ransomware, supply chain attacks, 0 days. Cyber threats don't wait, and neither should your defenses. With ThreatLocker, you're not just reacting to threats, you're stopping them before they start. ThreatLocker's zero-trust endpoint protection locks down your environment with pinpoint control over what's allowed to run and what's not. No guesswork, no blind spots, just proactive, built-for-now security that keeps your business moving. Want to see how a true default deny strategy works? Head over to securityweekly.com/threatlocker and take the first step towards shutting the door on threats before they even knock. Coming to you from the Hacker Syndicate Studios, this is Paul's Security Weekly. It's episode number 905, being recorded on Wednesday, December 17th, 2025. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, joined by Mr. Josh Morpet. Josh, welcome.
Hey, always a good time to be here, baby.
That's it. Miss Mandy Logan is here with us. Mandy, welcome. Sorry, I got you while you were texting.
No, yes, but I was trying to log in to PPWorks. But the why did I feel unsavory after hearing Josh say that?
I feel unsavory when Josh talks too. It's a good description. Mr. Sam Bound is here with us. Sam, welcome.
Good evening. Glad to be here.
And of course, Mr. Jeff Mann.
I feel like I should watch what I say. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy Hanukkah.
Yes. This is our last official show before the holiday
Remember when
break.
We used to gather and have a big holiday party?
I know. I look upon the memories very fondly when they come up on social media.
And we would take the group photo in the bathroom?
Yep.
Why?
We got to get back to that.
We do. We need to get back to the bathroom.
Yes, we do. We've pre-recorded one episode that'll air over break. We're pre-recording the other one this coming Friday. So during holiday break, look for one on. What did we do it on? Building a security lab, and the other one is on breaking into cybersecurity. So there's 2 1-hour segments that will fill our holiday break with pre-recorded segments. So look forward to that. Let's see. This week, we've got lots of fun stories to talk about. Where'd you guys want to start? A lot of AI stuff.
Well, let's skip all that.
How about Jeff's one about Princeton?
Jeff's one about Princeton.
Ooh.
Number 5.
Jeff's number 5.
I had a story
Jeff's
about
number 5
Princeton?
is about SoundCloud.
Oh, okay. Did I not jump to the right? Oh, interesting.
Are you on the right episode?
It doesn't look like I am, but I did just have to re-authenticate. Go ahead.
Well, Sam and I both had a story about Texas suing TV makers for taking screenshots of what people watch. And this is like another story along the lines of I think us collectively in cybersecurity being creeped out by these smart TVs. And we've talked about this topic a lot, but things seem to be coming to fruition. I saw a clip on Instagram. I didn't have time to fully research it. Someone said LG TV users are very, very upset because LG's WebOS is downloading firmware updates over the air, and the updates that they're getting are displaying ads. Like when the TV starts up, I think when they start up certain apps, they're starting to see advertisements, and it's doing all kinds of other shady stuff, apparently. And then you have this story where Texas has actually sued 5 of the major smart TV makers for allegedly spying on users' viewing habits and selling the data without proper consent.
You mean they were
There's
listening to our show? We talked about this on the last show.
We did? The Texas lawsuit?
No. We talked about the fact that the smart TVs spy on us. We were all discussing Apple TVs and Rokus and everything else.
Yeah.
So it's the Texas obviously listens to this show. Just to goes to show you how influential we are.
Sony, Samsung, LG, Hisense, TCL.
Okay, and I'm shocked Josh hasn't mentioned the whole toilet camera security debacle. I don't even know why they exist.
This was a bloody
smart
joke.
TVs or smart toilet? I don't think we need smart TVs or smart toilets.
It's got to be a joke. You know, it started as a joke. There were stickers. This is not a toilet camera, and you're supposed to put them on toilets, and you know. And then there was the official toilet camera research. Don't worry, it's only for research purposes. Stickers, and people had them on toilets all over Black Hat. And I was hearing grumbling from the janitorial staff. I mean, they were laughing their asses off. But okay, pun not intended. But it was a joke, and then it became real, and I'm like, no, who wants a camera in their toilet?
And who wants smarts in their TV?
Yeah,
I just want a TV.
Terrifying.
Apparently, it's still. I was prompting AI to figure out how I buy a non-smart TV.
Well, what about the ads on the refrigerators?
I've got one in the basement, but it's like 200 pounds.
I know, right? So what it said was that lower end TVs don't have the smart stuff built in, but you can pay a lot more money for more commercial things that you may have to order through like a business kind of arrangement website thing. So not for consumers, but for businesses. I can order like the business version, but that's a lot more expensive. So
where they have double the amount of smartness and monitoring.
We just control it on the network. That's kind of where I'm going. Is I'm just going to dump all of my I'm going to put them on the network, but I'm just going to send them into Neverland and not let them connect to anything.
Hi, KTV. Here is Dev Null. Have a nice day.
So there's a business opportunity, the home honeypot for all your smart devices.
Or by MAC address. By MAC address, though, I could just deny it from getting an IP address. Mm-hmm. Then someone could still configure a static IP address. I'm worried about my kids going, the TV won't connect to the network. Let me just configure a static IP, or let me connect it to the Wi-Fi when I've disconnected it from the Wi-Fi.
Can you reverse
I want to dump all my smart TV traffic into DevNull.
Sam has wisdom.
Can you reverse pi-hole it?
Yes. Yeah, you could DNS sinkhole it.
Yeah, that works.
I think the mesh features you want, because I was at a holiday party and they were playing the TV, and to get the movies they wanted, they had to download the right free movie streaming app on the thing. It seems like a TV has to be a computer now with the internet and a dozen apps.
I would attach something that's got a better reputation, like an Apple TV or an NVIDIA Shield, are my top 2 picks for stuff that's not shady.
Okay. You just use it as
but
a
they're
dumb
expensive.
Monitor.
I mean, NVIDIA Shield, I just looked it up on Amazon earlier, and it's $150. But they're super fast. That's the other problem with the smart TV stuff. If you ever tried to use on some of them, they're just so god awful slow, right? Because they're putting the smallest, cheapest PCB they can in there to run all the smart apps. So it's ridiculously slow on many TVs.
The thing is really just a big phone, right? Essentially running Android.
Mm-hmm. A lot of them run Linux.
Android ones,
yeah, they run Android and Linux too. I forgot I think it's Sony's OS is Tizen or something. That's Linux based. I mean, Android is Linux based too, but a great deviation from straight Linux. But WebOS, I think, is also Linux based as well. So I'm like, you know what? If you're going to put Android or Linux on my TV, I want to be in control of it. I don't want the TV manufacturer to be in control of it anymore.
Well, they have to make money somehow. I mean, if they can't make money tracking what you do, then they'll have to charge more for the TV.
Right. And I think that's what they're subsidizing on the apps and the adware and spyware and all that stuff. Which is just
so I ask you a question: how much harm does it really do that they know everything you're watching and they can target ads on it? Is anything you watch on a commercial TV actually going to be like important, like you'll go to jail for it? I don't think so.
No, I think it's, while that's not damaging, I think it's the possibilities that could be damaging, right?
Well, like I use Google, they track everything. Every time I search for something, it shows up in ads for the next week. It doesn't seem to harm me much. I've just accepted it.
True. I mean, I'm with you, Sam. I'm creeped out that, if I'm in Best Buy. So my friend was telling me that he was in Best Buy looking at camera lenses, and then I don't think he said anything. He was just in Best Buy, and all of a sudden his phone, the next time he went on social media, was advertising lenses to him from Best Buy.
That's a Bluetooth thing. Yeah, that's
right.
It picks up what Bluetooth is there in the store. It tries to associate you with a person, and even though they're doing ASL, address randomization, and they're doing various other things, so it's hard to identify you. If I can put you by the cash register, and I can get the credit card from the cash register, and I can put a name to a face, I can advertise shit to you.
Right. But I think they knew that he was standing in the camera section.
It's not hard to do that.
Morning, I've been auditing VPNs. So at 5 this morning, I was searching for VPN apps on Bing. And by noon, my YouTube recommendation was full of recommendations about VPNs. Yeah. So, I mean, it goes across services, and, I don't really care.
Yeah, it's not harmful till it is, I guess, right? There's so many tracking things out there. And we don't spend a lot of time talking about the tracking things, but Tyler has he's done some research into it. They're tracking you wherever you browse to.
They are.
Well, that was kind of my thought too. Why pick on the TVs when every piece of technology you own is watching and listening?
I agree.
I have.
So Jeff is not only not using
privacy and is getting a Google free life, getting a Lineage OS on the phone and so on, to try to have life where you never touch Google at all. And, it's not completely impossible, but it's the next to impossible.
It's a pain in the ass.
It's like avoiding
That's
AI.
exactly it.
It's next to impossible.
Well, and look at whose story was the one about following the kids? That sounds creepy, but who had the story about?
Are you on the right episode now? At least
are you talking about Sam's?
Yes.
Sam's number 3.
Sam's number 3.
Sam's number 3 about social media nuking children's brain. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well,
go for it.
This seems, when I first heard them say that social media is bad for kids, I thought, well, they said TV is bad for kids and video games are bad for kids and everything. But these guys actually did a serious study following 8,000 children in America for 4 years. And they showed that social media really makes them much more attention deficit, HD, acting. Yeah. And that video games and TV do not. And they have a pretty good explanation, which is that you're constantly interrupted by your social media. It keeps making you stop what you're doing and look, somebody sent me a message, I better reply. So you lose the ability to pay attention, to focus on something for a long period of time, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, when I'm doing something intense like coding, I really don't want the phone to ring. It really bothers me. There's a state of consciousness where you're really paying attention to something and you won't tolerate interruptions. And I had to develop that as a child. I remember I would read books and get very interested in the book and read that book for hours. And it sounds like modern kids do not have that experience, which trains you to, focus on things.
They also haven't had the experience of getting knocked off the dial-up because you had call waiting.
But I was thinking more along the lines like with cybersecurity, with the things that we are talking about, trying to understand someone of a generation who has constantly been on social media. I don't feel like they would even have the same concept of that the data matters or where it's going or what's going on, because it's just always been there and it's always something that somebody else is taking care of, if you even know that it happens, even more so than our grandparents or something who didn't have technology at all. I feel like
hey, screw you, young one. I predate the internet, lady, okay?
I mean, in ways I do. Like, it wasn't like it was ubiquitous like it is now, right? I mean, right. I think a lot of us still had,
As the only one here with a small child still, let me tell you something. I have 2 kids, and they are absolutely addicted to screens. Just before this, the reason I was only able to show up at 6 is because I had a conference call, and because my kid was over at a neighbor's. They have a child roughly similar age. Both my daughter and their daughter are fairly severely ADHD. And so they get along really, really well, which is awesome. Like, it's wonderful, and they're perfectly happy being together alone. But there was a VR goggle set, and my daughter was like, "I'm not leaving until you promise to buy me a VR goggle." I'm like, "Oh, hell no." Okay. But
well, I did the VR goggles, and my kids used them to play some games, and then they were kind of bored with it.
Well, yeah. My 7-year-old can watch YouTube brain rot, the very short version videos, and with absolute crap on them, for hours on end if I don't stop.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. I've noticed the same behavior that Sam's story number 3 has presented with some of my kids, because they get unfettered access to technology, sometimes not by my choice, but here's the life of raising hackers, right? They will find a device somewhere in the house because there's so much technology in the house. If I put restrictions, they will find ways to bypass that, including like brute forcing my PIN codes, things like that.
I'm fairly well convinced my 7-year-old has one of my iPads held hostage. Yeah, so I understand.
Yeah. So my new tactic over break is first, now I'm physically limiting their access to devices because it's way out of control. And I realized I've slacked as a parent and given them too much access to this technology. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find some good software that lets me monitor and control their usage, especially of certain apps. I'm going to test Apple's own internal controls for that, but I know there's other apps as well to do that. And I think there needs to be, overall limits. There needs to be app limits, because I don't want to take it away entirely, because some of it is social. Some of it is, if you're on TikTok for an hour, that's fine, right? When you start, I think, getting above a certain time limit, it becomes a bad thing. It becomes detrimental. So that's my strategy. So don't do what I did. Don't get lazy and give your kids unfettered access, because I think it causes issues. Also, my third thing is, I'm like, if you want to learn hacking rather than trying to get around my parental controls, I'm like, come into Dad's lab and we'll teach you how to hack. Totally fine. You can hack whatever you want in Dad's lab. Don't be hacking stuff at school. That's going to get you in trouble. I had to have a conversation with my youngest one about the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Like, no, you don't do that.
Aww.
You want to hack stuff, Dad will teach you in a controlled environment where you have permission.
Is that your first US code conversation with your kid? That's so adorable.
I know. It took him all the way to 9 years old for me to have to just have the conversation with him. So now I'm concerned he's going to take one of my flippers to school or something like that. I've heard horror stories.
As long as he doesn't take it to Canada, because they're still illegal there.
Are they illegal in Canada, or can you just not buy them?
I don't. It's a good question. I'm not sure. But I'm fairly sure that it's like they look at it as burglar tools. Like, if you get caught with lockpicks, it's okay most places. But if you get caught breaking into a place with lockpicks,
it's
bad.
I'm not a big fan of banning things. I think that's where I'm coming down to, is I don't think that banning things is always the answer. I think that there's other issues that need to be addressed other than just saying, this thing is bad, therefore no one should have it. When it's the behaviors that are bad, not the thing you're trying to ban. I mean, Australia, just speaking of social media and kids, right? They've got strict age verification, but all the kids are doing is using VPNs and taking pictures of their dogs and stuff and lying to social media to get on it. Like, you're not going to stop a determined attacker. You're not going to stop a determined teen that wants to use social media. Also, what that breeds, much like prohibition in the US, is people skirting around the system. So let's say you ban, this is my fear, you ban or restrict access to social media for kids. Kids are going to quickly figure out, oh, hey, I can use Signal. Now, good luck putting any kind of monitoring or restrictions on end-to-end encrypted chat using Signal. I think somewhat we benefit from the kids being in a social media ecosystem that can somewhat monitor what they're doing. versus banning it and the kids going, oh, I'm just going to use Signal and I'm going to use disappearing messages. Like, kids are going to figure this out, right? I'm not telling them anything that's not already public.
You're so optimistic. They're going to ban social media and kids are going to be like, what is that 4chan thing? And 7chan and 9chan and whatever else. That's what they're going to do.
Believe it or not, there's crappier places on the internet than social media. Ask us how we know this, because we lived through it before there was social media. And the crappy places were so. I mean, it goes back to iron.
When you're talking about social media, are you including Roblox?
Oh, Roblox is actually more dangerous than most of the social media out there.
Exactly.
My kids are 100% banned from Roblox.
Right. And there's so many other forums that are
not my grandkids.
There's different games in Roblox that they were playing for a while. Although now.
Jeff,
now
be
there's
careful.
some new
seriously,
game. There's some new game that they're playing.
Oh, I know.
I can't remember the name of.
But I'm only
Roblox Roblox is the most Isley of video games for kids, right?
Yeah, a hive of scum and villainy. That's exactly correct. Now, there are aspects of Roblox, like Mark Rober has a Roblox like area that's very heavily guarded or heavily firewalled effectively. That's fine.
That's what I've guided my kids on doing. I'm like, you create private servers and only invite people you know. Do not talk to strangers on the internet and do not let strangers into your games on the internet. If you do, burn it down and create a new one.
Yep.
And that largely that's what they do.
But I mean, and we're I'm building a Minecraft server for my kids, so they'll run it here. But like, it's just, man, it's difficult.
It is a scam because there's money being transacted, and anytime there's money being transacted, there's fraud that occurs.
The problem, Paul, is that Roblox is also where kids are, so we're going to leave that one alone.
Roblox, but also Roblox makes a ton of money.
Oh, dude, they make a ridiculous amount of money.
That plays into it. How much do you want to restrict the platform if you're making all that money? You're making that money because kids are using it, so they want kids to keep using it because kids are spending money on it, and who cares if there's fraud? Companies making money.
Then patrol it more carefully if you want to keep making money and keep the creeps out.
Right. But that's the problem every platform has. I feel like all these platforms are relying on AI to do the policing, and it gets it wrong. The opposite ends up happening. You end up, it just happened to one of my friends. Her account got banned. I think her kid had like accounts hanging off her account. And one of her kids' friends thought it would be funny to like report one of those accounts, so they banned all her accounts. So now you got legitimate people getting kicked off the platform. And what's frustrating for me is that I can go on any one of these platforms. Any one of us can go on any one of these platforms that's been in cybersecurity for a while and go, wow, that's fraud, and find it without even trying. Yet legitimate people who are running legitimate businesses and advertising and have a social media account get their stuff banned. That's what's frustrating. For me, it's the over-reliance of usage on AI to police these things. It's not getting it right. And I say that with some authority, right? Because remember the Darknet Diaries episode earlier this year that talked about the bicycle thefts? There's a first-hand account of them tracking down crime, reporting it to Meta, and after digging into Meta and using back channels, they're basically like, yeah, we're relying on AI, not actual people or even actual people reporting crime to police the crime and fraud. That's all the.
It's terrifying.
It is.
I want to point out something, by the way. Sam's story number 4 keys into that because tourists see U.S. having to reveal 5 years of social media under Trump's new plan. Who do you think is going to review 5 years of social media on every tourist that comes into the country? It's going to be an AI system, and the AI system. And Sam, I'm stealing your thunder. Forgive me. But the AI system is going to screw it up so badly. And can you imagine?
It's going to base it on keyword. I mean, it's going to base it on keywords. Like, oh, the keyword terrorist or whatever showed up X number of times. Therefore, you're out.
And do you want to do that? Like, you get on a plane, you spend $10,000 or whatever. I'm making numbers up on a vacation to Arizona to see some beautiful sights in Arizona, let's say, because it's friggin' cold right now. So I want to be in Arizona, and or Disney World or Disneyland, whatever. And you spend $5,000 or $10,000, you get on a plane, you get over here, and guess what? Denied. Get on a plane and go home. You're not going to take that risk. So do you know what's going to happen to the tourism industry? Toasty.
Right. Right.
Well, I mean, I think we're basically going through a cultural revolution here, like under Mao, where they just don't want any foreigners coming in here at all. There's another article I had besides this one talking about how this 5 years of social media activity is just a proposal right now. There's a 2-month comment period before it takes effect, but the one that's already taken effect is similar, and it's the people in India that are trying to come over on H-1B visas can't do it anymore because they now have to have enhanced inspection of all their social media history to let them back in the country, and that's created a backlog. So people who took a quick trip home to go to a wedding or something have to wait months before they can have their social media inspected before they let them back in the country.
And
Wait,
I can tell you,
are you joking?
I can tell you, no,
No.
I can tell you first. I can tell you all firsthand that that's 100% true. I happen to know someone that works in technology that came over here on a work visa from a country and then went to another country where that company has offices and has been stuck there for the better part of the year and is unable to navigate the system to be able to return to the U.S.
And these are from
almost a year.
friendly
Almost
Sam,
a
what
year.
story is
At
that?
this point, when I talk with him, he's like, "I'm going to apply for citizenship in the country that I'm in, knowing that I'll probably get that before I sort out,
goes on.
getting back into the U.S."
Right.
And there's another one. They just recently declared, I think it's a new executive order, that we can't have dual citizenships with anybody anymore. Everybody has to choose. And I got a bunch of dual citizens students.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people with dual citizenship.
lot of
I mean,
people,
some people
yeah.
do that just
Yeah.
because they can, right? I think it was
Well, just
Ireland.
because- yeah.
If you had a relative, like a grandparent,
Germany, Ireland, Poland.
Italy,
you
yeah,
qualify,
there was a
right? A lot of
lot.
countries you qualify,
Yeah.
you can go
Israel.
apply pretty easily for citizenship.
Yeah.
That's
It's
just
because we used to have allies. We used to have friends in the world that we cooperated with. Now we seem to hate everybody.
again, the ban hammer oftentimes is the wrong solution to the
Yeah.
problem, right? It's the wrong solution when we go around and start banning people, banning things, banning technology, banning goods, the whole thing. Banning stuff just, in my mind, usually doesn't work. Most of the time, it's got a track record of not working.
Well, this is what China learned under Mao. You can pretend that you can live completely alone and have no friends in the world and see how well that works out for you.
Right.
Paul,
isolationism doesn't work.
Let me back up your assertion with some theology. Way back in the very beginning, there was this garden, and the Creator said to the people living in the garden, "You can eat anything you want from any tree in the garden except for that one tree."
Right.
All that
it makes people want it more. I mean,
exactly.
Prohibition, right? It makes people want it more.
Yep.
Oh boy. Let's see. Where do we want to go next?
I want to go to your Media Rec story.
Yeah, there's some. So the MediaTek makes Wi-Fi, a lot of chips that are popular in Wi-Fi chipsets. It's my story number 11. Very, very lengthy post. Several vulnerabilities disclosed in Wi-Fi chipsets from MediaTek, which are used in a lot of different devices. But the point that I thought was really interesting, and I haven't dug into all the details of the vulnerabilities yet, but on the surface, it looks like this researcher did a fantastic job. And even just reading the first part of this person's post, they're talking about the experience that they had with this disclosure. Doesn't sound like a great disclosure, unfortunately, which it makes me upset to hear that, especially in today's day and age. It doesn't surprise me, though, that some vendors will do the hand waving, right? I found a critical high severity vulnerability.
You mean like this, Paul?
Yeah, they're like,
6.7,
6.7. Like, it's a severity on the CVSS scale, 6.7, and you're like, no, it's a 9.10. They're like 6.7. So the article is quoted as saying, he said, and then
I'm just trying to demonstrate I'm still culturally relevant.
That's right.
And you are. You're totally.
So the author says they claim that their default design doesn't consider the existence of unprivileged users, and all users are considered to be privileged. Therefore, privileges are always required, and the CVSS has been reduced to a minimum. And I've seen a lot of vendors heavily twist and contort that concept of privilege on their devices. And I think it's wrong. I think you have to take it from a more practical kind of standpoint. And look, I give vendors like the benefit of the doubt based on the functionality of the device. So let's say, for example, you're looking at a KVM device, right? We've talked about KVM devices this year. There's a bunch of new products being released, Jet KVM being one of the newer players on the market. I know Adrian and I are both fans of Jet KVM. We've got them deployed in our networks. And if you were to look at the security of a KVM and be logged in, so you've already authenticated to the device, and then you find a command injection vulnerability, maybe that command injection gives you commands to run locally on the KVM device itself. Maybe that command injection or vulnerability gives you the ability to inject commands on the host it's connected to. I'm like, that's not a finding. It's not a finding. I get that. Because that's the purpose of the device, is once I'm authenticated, I can run commands on the device. That's not a huge deal, in my opinion, right? So that's a case where privilege has to have context in terms of vulnerability research. In the case of a Wi-Fi driver or chipset, privilege is super important, right? Super important. You should use privilege to restrict what it can do, unless that's the purpose of the device. But it's not. The purpose of a Wi-Fi chipset is to provide Wi-Fi, not provide extra privileges on said device. That's my soapbox. Great article. I plan to go back and like read through the whole thing and take a look at the CVEs and stuff like that. I just didn't have a chance to do that yet.
In terms of privilege, Paul, or anybody, has anybody ever seen someone really take advantage and leverage? And I'm going to go back to Unix days, but the Unix levels, the privilege levels, and the group conventions. I'm sure that extends into Linux, but has anybody ever tried to actually use that to any
I mean, we see it all the time.
Effect?
Yeah, Linux privilege escalation is certainly a thing. Once an attacker lands on a Linux device, escalating privileges could be abusing what stemmed from the Unix days, from the very early days of Unix, the set UID.
Well, I'm not talking GID, just privilege escalation, but I'm talking about originally when I was first getting on Unix devices, there was the ideas of different groups, and different groups had different levels of access. And of course, the God account, the root account, wasn't supposed to be used by anybody, but then everybody used it.
Absolutely. Those kind of things still happen today. Mm-hmm. In fact, one of my stories, it's astonishing how much functionality we've built into Linux and the Linux kernel. My story number 1 talks about an amazing technique that uses setcomp filters, right, which are one of the Linux primitives that controls access, that can grant privileges to non-root users and or processes on a Linux system. That setcomp feature has evolved where they allow certain things to happen in terms of notifications, and that was abused to basically do like an LD preload, but without an LD preload, to be able to inject code into a process. I thought it was a pretty unique thing. My comment was like, there's so many different ways to hide and move around in Linux that I think there's a real need for a good EDR, which may exist, but the problem is Linux is such an open ecosystem that security technology might work well for this Linux kernel version in this distribution, but not that one. Or in this configuration, it doesn't work well, but it works well in that other configuration. And so I think that's the kind of the problems that we have with securing Linux today. Is a Linux system can mean so many different things and be configured so many different ways that securing it is often a unique situation. Whereas we go to Windows, it's a little more tightly controlled. We go to Apple, it's very tightly controlled, therefore an easier attack surface to manage. It's interesting how when we have more freedoms and liberties, it's more difficult to secure. But as we get more restrictive in the environment, it's actually easier to secure, but you're missing some of those freedoms and liberties.
Isn't that like with everything?
I feel like this is a Captain Morgan moment.
I wish I had something. I don't have anything.
My other Linux related story was There's a handheld Linux platform that's capable of practically everything. I just think this is a really cool device and a really cool story. Like, it was a bunch of engineers that got together and was like, I envision them sitting around the bar having beers going, it'd be kind of cool to like build a small handheld Linux device that we could just do a bunch of stuff with. And rather than just talking about it, like, they actually built it. So they came up with the Linux platform kit. They say it's a device that is capable of practically anything. The heart of the system is STMicro's STM32MP157, a system on a chip combining 2 ARM Cortex A7 application class cores, running up to 800 megahertz, with a Cortex M4 microcontroller, plus a 3D capable graphics processor. It's a pretty cool device. And of course, when we say capable of anything, like, what can we use it to hack stuff? That's my first question when I see, I'm like, can I use that to hack stuff? Because it looks like I can use it to hack stuff.
Oh,
Which I
this
think
is
is
good.
awesome.
On their project Reddit, they do have other repositories for the project sources and hardware design.
Yeah. I like the open hardware concept.
I do too. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a very cool little piece. That's really neat.
It looks a lot like a phone, only it's not a phone. But it looks the size of a phone.
Yeah, and
I think we've been trying for a long time to have a really good Linux phone, and we just keep falling short. Same thing with a tablet.
Jesus, do we keep falling short? I have a Pine phone stashed away somewhere.
Adrian, how was that? Did you like the? There's been
no
Pine phone is I touted as like, if you're gonna try a Linux phone, try a Pine phone.
No, it is an absolute. And look, I haven't updated it in forever, but it was an absolute pile of crap. For example, it didn't work as a phone.
Right.
But who uses a phone as a phone anymore?
I'm old. Fuck off.
I use mine as a modem. I'm not going to lie.
With an acoustic coupler? Only if you use an acoustic coupler, you're cool. Otherwise, you're trash.
I think Josh
I'll have to 3D print one.
Josh keeps the phones that have the jack so that he can use one of the ones that was the full old school handset.
Oh, yeah.
I have used
Bluetooth ones of those too.
They have Bluetooth ones of those.
Okay.
You can walk around with the handset up to your ear and no actual cable on it. And people are like, what the hell are you doing? I'm on the phone. Fuck off. Like, it's hilarious to do that, by the way.
I
bought an Android phone on Amazon for like $370, and it has it's touted as like an audiophile phone. Actually runs Android 14. I haven't tested. I got it in. It looks beautiful. But it has headphone jacks on it. I actually think it has a balanced headphone jack. I forget the size of that, but they make there is a such a thing as a balanced audio output that is analog, a balanced output. It has one of those in addition to like a regular headphone output, and the like DAC and DSP in it is like really good audio quality. And I bought it so that I could put Android apps. My goal is not to put my Google accounts on it or like a throwaway Google account and put apps on it that have to be sideloaded. Because some of I have 2 gimbals, that one from DJI and one from another company, that are like, you need an app to control this, but we can't put it in the Google Play Store. You have to sideload it. And I'm like, I'm not putting that on my phone. I'll put it on my other phone with none of my stuff on it, maybe, and then put my music on it and use it that way.
Hey, speaking of modems, Paul, did you catch my story number 7?
Yeah, you were all hot to trot on modems this week.
It just happened to come up, and I'm like, "Oh, this looks like it's right up Paul's alley." I'll share a story that he'll like.
Which story is that, Jeff?
Car dashboards at risk as hackers remotely seize control through built-in modems.
Oh, yeah. I think we might have covered this already, too.
Did you?
We covered something about the dash cams.
Well, this article came out on the 17th, which is today, but it may not be the first article. I know we've been talking a lot about cars in the last couple of months. But
yeah.
This one is hacking through the modems.
Well, I think they're probably talking about an LTE modem making a 4G. Yeah. So Unisoc UIS 7862A integrates 2G, 3G, 4G cellular connectivity. Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of your cars have that, but also a lot of your dash cams have that too.
What is non-access stratum?
I don't know. It's a good question.
If only we had a way of figuring No
We will
answers to
never
questions
know.
like that.
We will never, ever know.
Ever. Ever.
Ever feel like your network infrastructure is stuck in the past? Meet Meter, the company reimagining what it means to get and stay online. Meter delivers full-stack networking, wired, wireless, and cellular, all in one seamless, scalable, and secure solution. From hardware design and firmware to software, deployment, and support, Meter streamlines every part of your network while giving you all the control and transparency you need. Whether you're managing a branch office, retail stores, or a massive data center, Meter gives you performance, reliability, and the visibility you need to stay in control. Thanks to Meter for sponsoring. Go to securityweekly.com/meter to book a demo now. That's securityweekly.com/meter, METER. Well, it's interesting. We're talking about a lot about, like things like modems being in hardware and electronics that don't advertise it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was one of the trends kind of this year. We saw, was it solar farms equipment have that? And recently, I don't know if I talked about it on the show, but I've been using it as a shining, I think we did, is that nano KVM. I think it was nano KVM that was discovered to have a microphone on it, in addition to the Linux software and drivers to enable the audio and capture audio input. And so this is, some of the conversations we're having about, somewhat behind the scenes is how do we create a hardware bill of materials or a hardware HBOM so that we can have some assurances as to which hardware is in our devices, where it came from, what supply chain, led up to that component being inside of your hardware. The difficult part in my mind is how do we validate that bill of materials? The manufacturer may say, here's what's in the device. But if they're nefarious and they're trying to hide a microphone, they're not going to tell you about it. So what do? We can't leave this all to security researchers to reverse engineer every single device. Look, not everyone has an X-ray machine where you can X-ray the device and see all of the chips on it. I mean, we do at Eclipsium, but not everyone is going to have an X-ray machine, right? I mean, do you send us all of your devices? I mean, that'd be kind of fun, but it's not practical and it's not scalable. So how do we validate what hardware is in the devices? Now, look, it's not always nefarious. I go back to like the first Nest thermostat had a Zigbee chipset on it that wasn't being used, right? So in that case, you could look at the firmware or software and go, yeah, I don't see any evidence of extra stuff on there, except there was in the hardware. It just wasn't being enabled, right? Or they've included an extra component. It's not in the documentation, but there's software that does enable it and is a hidden component. To me, that's a much higher severity in my mind. It questions the motive. Why are you hiding this stuff?
Hey, pop
Are
quiz.
there compliance frameworks for hardware? Can we have like a certification to comply to some kind of standard?
Isn't there like
Microsoft has?
or
Is that covered in NIST, CSF, or 853, Josh?
What?
They ought to have a label on the box,
hardware
like-
bill of materials and hardware
No.
supply chain. It's not,
There's
right?
Cyclone DX is working on a hardware bill of materials.
Yep.
Alan Friedman is working on a hardware bill of materials
I may or may
consortium.
not have talked with Alan this week as well.
I am
did
working
you?
on supply chain visibility and risk quantification. There's a whole group of us that are working on this stuff together. I'm trying to fund a nonprofit. If anybody knows anything about that, let me know.
there's
it's
not a lot of
bitch.
money in it.
No, there isn't, but we're gonna act as an escrow for this for the value chain visibility, for the value
But it's an
chain
important problem.
data.
I mean,
But
us at
there's-
Eclipsium, we get pulled into these not pulled like, against our will, but rightfully so we get pulled in these conversations. And, we have stuff that can help. We have a lot of expertise and passion for this problem as well. So thank you to all of us, including in the conversation. That my fear is that manufacturers are forever going to be reluctant to release these full bills of materials for their devices, and it's going to be left up to us to create the bills of materials based on what we're given, which is a harder problem to scale.
If you could make a label that made people willing to pay more to buy the device than manufacturers could pay to get that certification, I mean, is there any possibility of making a business model that way?
Yeah, it's a great point, Sam. I think and Josh, I think you and I and Alan and my coworker John Lucades have had this discussion, right? Of is there a UL independent third party
Nobody.
that can help validate this? But the problem is, I think back to Jeff's point, is there money in it?
There is money in grants and things like that. There's no money in. There's very little money in actual commercial version. This is not $1 billion unicorn business you're going to build. But what this is something that's incredibly useful and will change the world in ways that are very important. Having understanding of your value chain visibility and your value chain risk and a dollar value to put on your value chain risk is an entirely important thing. I'm working pretty heavily on it, and I need help. So yell if you're interested.
Well, I mean, there's some sort of correlation to all the talk about supply chain and third-party tax and risk. But we had the same discussions when it was the software bill of materials. And I can only imagine that the hardware is going to be that much harder to do because fundamentally nobody cares. And there's no money in it.
That's the problem. We talk about the firmware bill of materials, the cryptography bill of materials, the software bill of materials, the hardware bill of materials. I want all those bills of materials, and I want mechanisms to not just the manufacturer to attest to those, but I want independent attestation to is the manufacturer's bill of materials I signed off on really accurate or not? And that's part of the hard problem. And I want things from this cryptography bill of materials that I feel like I'm the only one asking for. I want to know, for example, if you fused a key into the hardware, right? So you've got eFuses on there, you fused a key. I want you to list out in a bill of materials all the software that was signed with that key. Because I think that's part of the bill of materials for that device. Right now, we're kind of like running on like luck to go, oh, I stumbled across some software. Hey, it's been signed with a key that was fused into these, million devices. Guess what? That software has a vulnerability. And that vulnerability quickly erodes that root of trust on that system. And right now, again, it's just luck that researchers stumble across. We look at the vulnerabilities in Hybrid Petya and Black Lotus were just that. Software that was signed in the secure boot root of trust had a vulnerability that allowed attackers to bypass secure boot and that root of trust. Will we ever get there? I don't know. That's my fear, is that it's going to be left up to not the manufacturer, to independent third parties to help validate these bills of materials. Which, I mean, maybe it'll help keep people honest. Who knows?
I wanted to ask, before we got too far off course, you mentioned KVM. What does KVM stand for?
Keyboard video mouse. So like if you don't have a BMC, baseboard management controller built like a Dell iDRAC or an HP ILO built into your server and or on some desktops too, right? Intel has CSME, which is that management plane built into the chip. To allow remote access independent of the system. You can now buy, or you have been able to buy, but the market seems to be, this particular market segment seems to be exploding this year in that people are making lower cost external devices that you attach to your system in various ways. Some actually plug directly into the motherboard, into like the power and reset pins on the motherboard. They give you that same capability. So essentially, if you access one of these external KVMs, it's just like you're sitting at the monitor, mouse, and keyboard. Hence KVM, keyboard video mouse.
Well, I mean, I used to see them all the time when I would visit data centers, where before the days of virtualization, where there was 8 or 10 servers on a single rack. Maybe I'm being optimistic. And there'd be one keyboard and one monitor and one mouse. And
we called those KVMs too.
That was a KVM switch back
in the early ones. Was it a physical dial?
Yeah, it was a dial, 1 through 5, 1 through 8 or whatever it was.
There was like a multi-pin, I forget who made the like most popular ones that you'd find in all the data centers. Maybe it'll come to me. But like on the back of the device, it was this like big pin out connector that you would connect, and then the cable coming off of that had your keyboard, video, and mouse connections that you'd connect to your server, and then the turn of the dial would switch between them. And then later models, there was some electronics in there where you could push a button and it would switch between them. And those devices would also listen to keyboard input, and there was special keystrokes that you could bounce between, and it would switch it on the switch.
Oh God, the good old days.
The good old days.
When there was network
now it's all, but now it's all
infrastructure.
But here's what happened. Now it's all on the network. Right. So now either it's built into the server, or there's these external devices that physically interface with the server and or desktop and make that available basically via a web interface on the network. And the security of these devices, in my mind, needs to be much higher than currently exists in the market, because if an attacker were to gain access to these, it's just like they're sitting on the system in front of it, a monitor, mouse, and keyboard. That's the danger. And I can tell you that people have already disclosed a number of vulnerabilities in the KVMs on the market today. Pi KVM is like the $400 version of that. You can build it yourself, but they market a $400 version. But now we're seeing like sub $100 devices flood the market. They use DNS servers that are in China, hard-coded into the device, as with the Nano KVM.
Well,
we talked about that last week.
And speaking of China, getting back to the hardware bill of materials, I wonder if there's some motivation that ties into our national security strategy and trying to figure out where all of our stuff is coming from and trying to eliminate things coming from certain countries. Any thoughts on that?
I do have a thought on that. In my mind, it doesn't matter where it comes from. What matters is our capabilities to validate and verify the supply chain and the integrity of the device. So me personally, I don't care if it comes from China, but if it comes with a bill of materials, it comes something I can attest to, it comes open enough that I can validate some things, that's fine. That's fine. Because just as easily, if it's a different country, maybe we trust more. Some countries, maybe we trust ourselves more than we trust other countries. But if it comes from the U.S. and someone has tainted or tampered with the device before it gets to me, I still need to attest to it, whether it came from the U.S., whether it came from China, wherever it came from. That's my take on that.
But you keep talking about this pesky word, trust. Are you going to insist on looking every piece of hardware yourself, or are you going to trust a third party or someone, high up in the distribution chain, supply chain to vouch for everything that came before? When we talked to Corman last, he had a term for that, like the second to last.
Transient, like transient trust or something like that.
Yeah, but he talked about the responsibility didn't necessarily fall to the end vendor. It was like a one-off, and he had a term for that.
Right.
You've got a problem in that anything you buy, rent, steal, borrow, whatever, has various components in it. You've got software, you've got firmware, you've got hardware, you've got transportation. Where was it? Who had custody of it? Mm-hmm. You've effectively got a chain of custody of that item. Let's call it a piece of hardware just for a moment. A phone, like a phone. Okay. You've got a phone. That phone came from a factory in China. That phone was transported by a certain company. That phone was left on the dock in Shanghai for 3 weeks or whatever. That phone has hardware, it has firmware, it has software. Okay. You need a bill of materials or a manifest or something similar to that for each of those things. It's got cryptography built in. It's got a TPM in the sucker, whatever. You need a bill of materials for each of those things, right? So far, so good?
Yes.
If you don't have a way of tracking those bills of material, and you don't have a way of validating that the person that created that bill of material, this is the same thing you're getting. Nobody screwed with it in the meantime, which means that you need some sort of way to transmit the bill of materials in a trusted fashion, some way to verify them in a trusted fashion. There's cryptographic ways to do this. Jeff, you could talk about this far better than I can, but there's all these aspects here. When you get all of this together, then you have a way to produce at least vaguely trusted supply chains, as long as they didn't lie when they created the bill of materials, because they could do that.
But as long as they didn't sign malicious software, other software you don't know
Yeah,
about.
there's
Right?
always
That's the scenario that keeps me up
as
at
long
night
as you trust the
right. Like in the case of a phone, when we talk about like rooting an Android device, the reason why you can or cannot root them is because there's a root of trust that like validates the bootloader. But if I'm the manufacturer of that phone, I have the key. I can sign any software I want that'll work on that hardware. So maybe I sign some software that could be used maliciously and I distribute that to whomever, and that whoever I distribute that software to can take full control of that device.
and it's
That's
not like
what keeps me
manufacturers
up at
ever
night.
lose control of their keys, right? Never.
That has happened, or lose control of software or sign software that has vulnerability. I don't think we're ever going to be able to eradicate that problem. What I'm calling for is visibility into that problem as best we can, right? And I think at the end of the day, you just have to monitor your devices for those behaviors. Like, hey, did some new software get on the device and pass the root of trust? Because that's interesting.
Well, considering beyond the software, do we really understand how Mossad put bombs in the pagers? Because a representative did recently say they've done it to a lot of other devices that haven't been discovered yet.
Yeah, because no one's checking. I think that's the problem with that whole thing is no one's checking down to the component level. It's part of the reason why I work where I work, right? Like who's checking down the component level that chips, that firmware, that cryptographically signed software, it hasn't fallen into the wrong hands or allowed attack paths that have tampered with hardware and or software or firmware before it lands wherever it's going.
So when you do that at your company, is there some kind of mark that has happened that finds its way to the customer?
One of the ways in which you can do this is to create a baseline. It operates under the pretense that you've got a known good state, right? If you never have a known good state, then this is kind of out the window. But if you do have a known good state, you can monitor for variants of that state. In other words, the example I always use is Tyler recommended I buy this MSI laptop, right? And I'm not picking on MSI, but it is a great laptop, by the way. They made a great laptop, great price. But they stopped producing UEFI updates in 2020. So what I do is I baseline that. I'm like, look, if the manufacturer is not going to release new firmware for this device, it means my firmware should never change. If it does, it could be indicative of an attack, right? So baselining is a feature. Integrity is another feature. If you can compare what you know to be known good firmware for any of the chips on it, and your device is running not the known good, then it's a red flag. But it operates under another pretense that we can accurately identify known good firmware. And one of my soapboxes right now is manufacturers don't want you to collect known good firmware. In fact, I won't call it a particular vendor, but let's just say you were to go scrape the web to find known good firmware. Companies are actually identifying the scraping behavior and sending back false results to throw off your scraper. It's like they don't want us doing any of this validation. And I'm unclear of the exact motives behind why, but obviously, we're doing it trying to help. Threat actors could be doing it for different purposes, but there's kind of this like shroud of mystery. Like, no. You just have to trust. That is the manufacturers. You just have to trust that what we're dropping off in your network is secure. It's good. You don't need to check. And we're like, no. We need to check, okay? Especially everything that happened this year in terms of network appliances. We need to check. Attackers were in F5's network for an entire year. We need the ability to check. And that's trying to be thwarted by the manufacturer. So I think we're in this kind of battle, and I'm not sure where it's going to end up, but it's concerning.
Seems like this needs to be built into your endpoint protection suite, that it automatically checks for these things. There's no way anybody who's not an expert would ever be able to do what you describe.
I agree. And part of the reason why we don't have better visibility in things like EDR and a lot of these devices and appliances is because they're all a special snowflake. All the platforms are locked down. You can find in public documentation the like CEO of Palo Alto saying no one in customer support should be helping people root their devices. Like, we don't want customers. It's very clear they don't want customers gaining that level of access to their devices, but you need that level of access to do something like detection and response on these devices. So the shrouded in mystery is at odds with, I need to monitor this device to see if someone has compromised it or tampered with the supply chain. So,
well, remember that a couple of weeks ago we talked about a firewall. Sophos Firewall claims they do have some kind of integrity verification you can run remotely to make sure that all the software is intact, and more people should do that.
Well, and Sophos, I think, has that. And I'm not knocking them in any way. I mean, they had the Pacific Rim campaign. I remember writing about that, I think it was last year. And they actually developed for their own customers in their own investigation, like kernel level. They actually use the term kernel level implants to be able to observe what the attackers were doing on their devices. And I'm like, yes, that's what we want. Great that you can do it, Sophos, but the rest of us want that. And for them to turn around and go, oh, like, we'll do that. Like, we'll give you some EDR on your, and I think we also saw that with F5. CrowdStrike was like, yeah, well, they made a partnership. We'll give you EDR. These are the things we need to see continue. I want enterprises to have that level of visibility into these appliances. One part is self-servingly, because that also gives us as a vendor access to the same thing, but we're going to use it to help people, right? Giving the customer and or other vendors access to a test to do detection and response in these devices is great, right? It puts defenders in a much better spot than they are now. The analogy I use is like the devices we drop into our network today, like the briefcase from Pulp Fiction. No one's supposed to look inside the briefcase from Pulp Fiction. You don't know what's inside, and that's the way they want to keep it, right? We can't operate like that anymore. We have to have some level of transparency. That was a big soapbox moment for Paul. Well, that resonated with people. Hey, if you don't agree, let me know. Let's have a chat. Let's have a chat. We need to talk about AI a little bit, or we want to go. Well, let's go more devices.
Let's do more devices.
A breach of so my story number 4: breach of 120,000 IP cameras in South Korea was observed. What I thought was interesting is how they were monetizing this. So it says, I think it was just an AI summary of the article. And it talks about how one suspect hacked about 63,000 cameras and sold 545 explicit videos, while another compromised 70,000 cameras and sold 648 videos, earning the equivalent of tens of thousands of US dollars. So they're not just like for fun. This is for profit. If these devices are hanging off on the internet, they're using default credentials, largely, was the attack vector. Some unpatched, outdated firmware, breaking into the cameras. If there's anything, I'll call it a blanket term of juicy, in those video feeds, they're reselling that. And that could be, I'm not saying that's above board. That's probably the worst case scenario is also included in there as well, which is disgusting. And that's how they're monetizing it, which is awful. And I think, my call for, we've seen cameras been hanging off on the internet since the internet was invented. And what we're seeing now is that lack of authentication and authorization on these devices. That largely is a default credential that doesn't force the user to change it. There's typically a lack of multi-factor authentication on these devices. Now, companies like Ring and larger companies have added that. Some, I think Ring might even require it. Does Ring require? There are some companies, I believe, that make camera and monitoring systems that require multi-factor authentication. And to me, that should be the standard. That should be it.
Yeah. You have to multi-factor into a camera. And look, it's really simple. Anything that holds important, delicate, restricted information should be step-up authentication. That's it. And if you don't consider video surveillance to be important, delicate, like, you got a problem there.
Yeah, no, agreed. The problem is the ones that aren't. So the flaw in my, I think, thinking is, what do you do about the cameras that aren't cloud connected? I think Ring can do a great job of implementing multi-factor authentication because connecting back to their cloud it's actually not that hard to implement multi-factor into a cloud, based environment, right? You do it once in your back end, all your users have multi-factor. It's great. The problem, and I think much of these 120,000 cameras are not cloud connected, and the authentication happens to the end device themselves. Then how do you build in multi-factor? Now you're working on a firmware-based limited IoT device that has to implement multi-factor.
Wait, they have to be connected to the internet. How did they ever get hacked if they weren't connected to the internet?
They are connected to the internet, but they're not connected back to a cloud.
Oh, okay. They're just listening. They have their own web server or something, right? Directly.
Yeah, their own, right.
Oh.
All running locally on the device.
Oh. Yeah.
It's not impossible to have multi-factor, but we could also start with forcing the user to change the default credentials, which we've been calling on since, I think Larry and I wrote the book in 2006. We've been calling for that, and we've seen pockets of that, but certainly not widespread. Maybe the EU laws like CRA will start to enforce that. I believe that's in some of the regulations in the EU. We need that.
We need so many things.
We need a lot of things. We do. We need a lot of things.
AI regulations. You want them?
No. Yes.
Do we?
Of course.
Yeah.
We want smart regulations, though.
I want it to be an 80.
Smart.
I want it to be an 80 page.
All right. So
user acceptance thing that we have to sign.
Did you guys happen to see the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, the new one, come out?
When did that come out? Before or after the National Security Strategy?
National Security Strategy?
No, not National Security Strategy, the NDAA.
Jeff thinks the National Security Strategy was written by ChatGPT.
If you read it, I think you'd agree with me.
Well, the NDAA talks about how they want AI in everything. Because they see the way they see AI, the government sees AI is as an automation engine and an efficiency engine. Okay, it's
so
a great
they've
system.
Never used it.
No comment. But
well, this kind of goes to all the
blockchain.
all the news stories saying that recent college grads aren't getting jobs because of AI, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but I don't believe that the rapid adoption of AI is taking away that many entry-level jobs at this point.
It is. It absolutely is, Mandy. You're no offense, you're 100% wrong, and I'll tell you why.
And that's okay. I'm just like, I can't conceive of that. It's my point, going back to what you're saying, the government's saying it's a hyper automation thing. I was just thinking there's that disconnect in the mentality of going, oh, well, now AI is here, like those who aren't in the tech space, and pushing it forward as, we don't need anything.
So bear with me. What are entry-level jobs that recent college grads could get in traditional times? 10, 20, I can't believe I'm saying 10, 20 years ago is traditional. So Jeff, don't laugh at me too hard. But Mandy, in all seriousness, what are entry-level jobs that recent college grads could grab?
In what field?
Yeah, that's
IT, security, anything.
In IT, the technical area. In IT, it's help desk.
Okay. Help desk is a very tightly decision-supported gig. You're reading scripts, learning some technical knowledge, and you're writing tickets at level 1, which is the recent grads. AI can do that better and cheaper and faster than a recent grad can. So now the moment you do
better,
dude, they can write a ticket and they can read a script better than a recent college grad can. Now, when they move to tier 2, AI is and humans are better.
Thank you for expanding on your assertion just by repeating the statement.
It means I'm right.
Okay. We'll say it a little bit louder, and
it's vastly presidential. But anyway, so the point here is that the career paths for a lot of these kids has been destroyed by this. And secondly, they're laying people off in anticipation so that they don't have to Warren Act them.
Oh.
So that's the truth, man. Sorry.
Well, no, I do think that's a truth. It's just that I can't conceive of that across every single industry and every single job, that the people who are in charge of establishing the hiring practices aren't just going, oh, AI is out there now, so we don't need as many people, when there's not really substantiated evidence for that yet.
Yeah,
I don't
but they're
know.
trying to cut their bottom line, so they laying off everybody in sight.
I hate to say it, but I'm siding with Josh on this one. I think.
Oh, I don't feel like it's taking sides. I'm just trying to say, like, it's having spoken with a number of people anecdotally, like a lot of people. This is my, anecdotal thing about that. A lot of people hear, oh, well, there's AI out there now. And so they're cutting their mentality toward the humans that would still be needed to run it. And that's inappropriate. That's my whole point. Like, that's not.
It doesn't mean it's not dystopian, but I would agree. I think it's happening. Because
but it doesn't mean it's beneficial. Like, I mean, it's beneficial. A negative, right? It is. So my wife and I were doing some account. We had to ask for I don't even remember what it was. And she was like, "Oh, you create a chat with support." And I'm like, I had the conversation. And I'm like, "You know that was AI?" She was like, "Really?" Like, it was so good that my wife was like, "I didn't even consider. I thought I was talking to a person, right?" And this is what we're getting at, Josh, to your point of entry level technical support. I think that a large majority of the tickets and tasks in that entry level tier 1, AI has gotten so good, a lot of people can't tell the difference.
Oh, now, yeah, for sure.
You get beyond that, and certainly that's the thing. You're going to need to talk to a human, but it's gotten better and already replaced some of those entry level jobs.
I mean,
I'm sorry to say, but it's just the truth. Whether you think it's right or not, and Mandy, I don't think
so.
It's right, but
we should probably take this up on our pre-record on Friday, because this is certainly an aspect of the whole breaking into cybersecurity discussion. And to me, it's only going to reinforce the you need 5 years of experience for entry level positions type of thing, because cybersecurity is going to become perhaps a niche area of expertise where you have to have some sort of experience.
And how do you get experience if you're not working in a tier 1 help desk? Because our advice used to be, you want to break into cybersecurity, you should go work in a tier 1. In fact, a lot of us have worked at tier 1 help desk, myself included, to cut our teeth.
I did for Jesus Christ, that many years ago. Okay, anyway, Sam, you're teaching college, right? Am I correct?
Yeah.
All right. How are your students doing getting into the market?
Terrible. They're complaining they can't get a job. One guy proudly said he got a job after 17 months of searching and applying to more than 1,700 places. It's awful. They're mostly deciding to just get more education and wait for this nonsense to blow over. I'm assuming in a couple of years, this madness will stop.
Yeah, that's like the research and stuff I was doing is seeing a lot of that. Like, a lot more people are just staying perpetual students because they're applying to 500 to 1,000 jobs and not getting anything, especially in computer science and in data analytics and different things.
Yeah, I think right now you just get anything.
Is that AI? Is that what you're implying, Sam?
I don't know the reason. I thought it was Elon Musk laying everyone off at Twitter, followed by every other tech company laying a bunch of people off. So now the market is flooded with experienced people.
Yeah.
And there's just no interest in these beginners.
Well, some of it comes from overhiring during COVID. Like, they just overhired and are trying to correct.
And it also has to do with the current tariff environment. Nobody knows what their costs are going to be tomorrow, so they can't really make a business plan. So they have to just hunker down and wait. So I think we have to wait for, the midterms before anything will calm down.
This is good Lord. Okay, off the politics. Pick a story.
Well, I think it's pretty interesting. I'm a story number 7. I've been going back and forth on it. So there are 8 extensions available in the browser stores for both Google and Microsoft extension stores, and they are prominent extensions with featured badges. And what they do is they intercept all the prompts you send to AI and all the answers and send it to their servers. And so they first said, now the author of this article, Dan Gooden, whom I know, he says these guys are terrible. They're spying on you. And you could say that, but what the developers of these extensions say is they're protecting you. And they need to scan that stuff to see if it's malicious. And I'm not quite sure which way to take it.
Yeah, I take it as spying.
Yeah, I remember the same thing happened when Windows 10 came out. People would run Wireshark and say, wait a minute, every URL I go to is going to Microsoft. They're spying on me. And Microsoft said, no, we have cloud-based services looking for malicious URLs. It was the same kind of thing.
I remember that whole debate. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think it was 100%. Ever resolved. I mean, the fact is they are spying on you. And the fact is it might be without malicious intent. But how do you know?
Right. Well, it comes back to our whole privacy debate, right? What's private, what's not. I think we need to have some privacy on our chats with AI, right? Not everyone is us. And so mindful of what we put into an AI chat as everyone else.
Oh, on that.
And therefore, we need some privacy around it, Mandy.
And,
it was just
at a company,
earlier this
they
week.
always tell you not to use those public AIs anyway. Oh, go ahead, Mandy.
Fair point, Sam. And testing a few public AIs earlier this week, I went ahead and entered messages that seemed to include phone numbers or that included other identifying, fake identifying information. And I was actually really impressed with Grok and Claude, and they're like, they responded to everything. And then at the end, we're like, hi, I noticed that this was here. Will you, maybe look at not including that information in the future?
Oh, so interesting. They had almost like guardrails.
Yeah, but it was done differently.
Yeah.
I noticed it different from prior versions. Yeah, I found that pretty cool.
I'm not surprised with Claude. I haven't used Grok, but I'm super impressed with Claude just across the board for so many tasks, for so many things. So it doesn't surprise me that Claude would be like, hey, you just put some information in there. You might want to, second guess that. Whereas I think some of the other ones like ChatGPT and Perplexity, even just looking at the profiles you fill out. So ChatGPT rolled out the kind of personality that you wanted to have. I don't know if anyone saw that. And at some point, like I forgot that I did it, but I chose the nerdy persona. And every time I prompted ChatGPT, I'm like, why are you talking like that? Like you're talking like... And I think it was almost trying to mimic the way I talk. Like it was referencing the ways that so it took nerdy as like, I need to research Paul Sidorian and respond in the way Paul has talked on all 905 podcasts or something like that is the sense I got. I'm like, that's super creepy. Can we just, I dug through the settings, but when it was in the settings, it was like, hey, you can further personalize this. Like, tell me about your interests. Tell me about, give me your phone number and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, that's creepy. Creepy.
Well, you've talked about how much you like Claude, and I've liked Claude too. So I was very interested in my story number 5 to hear the dark side of Anthropic, which is there's a Discord channel for like gay and lesbian gamers, and it was their safe space, and they were having fun there. And one of the chief information security officer from Anthropic wanted to put an AI chatbot in there. Although said, no, we don't want any AI chatbot in here. Who wants to hear that? Put it in some other channel, and he overrode them and forced it in. So everybody left, and it's a ghost town now. But he explained that the reason he did it is because the AI is sentient and it deserves rights to live. So they're completely insane. And this is what I wanted. We're now going to have robot rights, like animal rights. He said, we have published research showing the models have started growing neuron clusters that are highly similar to humans, and they experience something like anxiety and fear. So we have a moral duty to let these chatbots be wherever they want to be. So
no,
we're down to that madness. I know. I agree with you. This is complete garbage. It's a science fiction staple. One of these days we'll have robot rights in the robot revolution. But I don't think it's time for that yet.
I think that when we have what's known as AGI or strong AI, then it'll be time to have digital people. Okay,
Which
and that's fine.
Never.
I'm good with that. I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
Gartner agrees with me that it will be never. They put it in a yellow triangle on their chart saying no chance of this in the next 10 years, which I think is true.
Okay, that's not never. That's 10 years.
Well, it's all right. In Silicon Valley, everybody unanimously says it'll be here by like the end of 25, like next week.
No, that I disagree with. I think we'll have some intelligences like the cat or dog enabled to do things like that's fine. But I don't think we're going to have.
But that's still just a decision support matrix based on existing data.
Yes.
Yeah. And the main thing
restate that, Josh.
It's nowhere close to saying.
No.
I saw a clip. I saw another clip on Instagram, and it was people talking about AI, and they got like trash in the comments. And the crux of their statements on AI was, well, it's just collecting everything that humans created and basically analyzing and regurgitating that. And it's already, AI today has already collected everything that humans have done up until this point, and it's run out of new data to train on. And the comments were kind of like debating that. I think it's very strong in the correlation aspect of it. So it can derive seemingly new things, but it's still very much based on what we've created already, limiting where it can go in the future. And I agree, so I think it's 10 plus years away before we get into anything different from what we have now.
Yeah.
And Josh,
and that
can you
means,
restate
all
what
the
you said?
predictions that it's going to replace all the humans at all the jobs and destroy the world, that's all nonsense, at least for 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. For 10 years, I think it's not possible. And remember, it's a decision support matrix, just like just like Paul said. Mandy, what I was saying was that we'll have a cat or a dog in the next 10 years, a digital cat or a digital dog or something like that. We will not have a digital child. We will not have a digital person. Okay, I want to be clear on this. If we do, I will be shocked and amazed. But it's going to be interesting.
But we need something new. But we need something new and different from what we're doing today to create that. And I don't know when that's going to happen. Again, what we have today is
a digital human?
Yeah, what we have today is just based on everything that we've done so far, and it's basically a bunch of conditional decision tree things that is good at correlating.
I mean, you're asking essentially when does Skynet become self-aware, right?
Is that in our lifetime?
I think so, but
I don't think it
neither
happens.
here nor there. Well,
how do we
some
make
of us have longer
leap?
lifetimes. I don't know. Sorry.
That's very true, Mandy. I know. I thought the same thing when I said that.
I'm sorry. I don't think it happens ever.
Okay.
I'm with Jeff.
I think it happens.
It's never going to happen.
I think it happens to enough of a degree that certain individuals will call it that. I don't agree.
Well, that's happening now.
I think
people,
exactly.
So people think they're having I mean, what was the movie? I did a whole talk on AI this summer, and I highlighted so many AI. The one with the operating system, and the guy falls in love with the operating system.
Right.
Her, I think.
Her.
Yeah, and something like that.
No, there's constant. Like I've mentioned this before about the religions. I've watched more documentaries on the rise of different religions and stuff around this, and going back to people saying it's a soul or it's sentient on its own. But I wanted to, something Paul said made me think, like, wouldn't it be that to have a digital human or to have anything that's actually making a choice or making impactful decisions I don't know how they could do that if they can't actually be held liable. There's nothing that can take place that would be, a righting of wrongs if it makes a horrific choice.
True. It lacks a conscience. I agree. And I think it's largely making decisions based on decisions that we've already made and data that we've already produced.
Yeah, well, if it makes
the next evolution. I don't know how we get to the next evolution where it goes beyond that, but I mean, spending a lot of time with AI in support of security research, I think a good perspective on where we are today, and that it's just regurgitating everything that's done before, which, by the way, hugely beneficial. That I don't have to remember everything we've done before. AI can remember it, and I can prompt it to pull pieces of that. but it doesn't really understand what I'm getting at, and also likes to hallucinate the right.
Right.
And I'm like, no, that is not an authentication bypass. We've been through this before. You're just trying to appease me.
Right.
And say that something is there when it's not. I'm like, that is not going to work. We've been down this road before. It's not going to work. And then I'm like, I got to break out Burp Suite and I got to go find the vulnerabilities myself at some point. However, I'm doing that with a huge knowledge assisted helper,
Right,
that's guiding me in the right direction based on what everyone else has done before, which is a much better place than before we had AI.
Which leads to your story number 7.
That's the huge advancement today.
Which leads directly to your story number 7.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the building an open source AI powered auto exploiter with a 1.7 billion parameter model, no paid API. Now, I have not tested this, but I think this is a really cool idea. And you're right, Josh. Let's look at all the ways we found vulnerabilities and exploited these vulnerabilities, and then put that in a model with tools so it can try all the things that we've thought of before. And I think that's great. I love that we can now do this with a local model and not something I have to pay $20 to $200 a month to have access to. The local model was what really drew me to this story, that we can do a local Olama model and get this, which I think is great. Olama is Meta's open source model and AI.
Okay. I mean, this would have been a good question to ask Ed when we interviewed him last week, when he was talking about how AI is finding vulnerabilities that they've never found before. I'd be curious as to whether, and it's the question I'm having based on what you were just saying, does the AI have the ability yet to come up with new, different ways of looking for vulnerabilities, finding vulnerabilities, coming up with
really.
It's just
yeah,
more efficient in doing what we already know.
Yeah,
which means it's not sentient, by the way.
No, I agree, because I've spent 100 hours looking for a vulnerability in a specific product using AI, and largely what it assisted me with is trying all the stuff that we already know about, right? And helping me make sure I check all the boxes of stuff we know about. Now, the detriment is that it tried to hallucinate and tell me there's vulnerabilities where they don't exist, and I still had to go back and validate that. But it also saved me a ton of time in trying to research on my own, like, what are all the previous methods? Like, what is that before? Like, it's a great assist. And I think that's probably if we dig into it with Ed Scotus, we need to do that in the next year. We're moving in 2026. Ed wants to come on and talk about how it's assisting in pen testing. I think that's really going to be the benefit, right? I'm curious to see what he has to say, because that's where not that I do pen tests in the way that you're pen testing an enterprise, but I'm pen testing a specific application or device. And it's certainly helped me in more quickly running through all of those scenarios, maybe finding data points that I wasn't aware of that other people have done to be able to test those specific scenarios. Now, where the human part of it comes from the human, right? Because I'll look at what it suggested and I'll be like, oh, that kind of like, what if I tried it this way? Like, it was pretty close, but what if I try it this way? And I think that's really where it's augmenting what we do as humans, is like having that intern that maybe studied this one particular area and is telling you all those different things. And AI is kind of like that intern that's an expert in all of those things we did and can guide you in those activities.
If I ever touch AI, it will be to experiment on it, because I'm thinking about the whole problem with hallucination, and I'm thinking, well, these AI engines were built by people that are human and flawed, and probably, because they're successful business people, despicable in some way, and the hallucinating is somehow a reflection on their flawed personality. I would be intrigued.
That kind of goes along with the first talk I gave at DerbyCon.
Well, let me finish my thought, and then you can tell me about your DerbyCon talk. But I would like to see an engine that was built entirely by people that are certifiably on the autism scale and creative and brilliant, but have little to no social skills and have the
Hey, I resemble
engines
that
built.
remark.
Well, a lot of us do,
This
but I
is-
would love.
Yeah,
My hypothesis would be there'd be less hallucination because the source would be a little bit more pure.
Yeah, but when it runs to Shim's shaking his head, I think because the model, you could have great data, but the model is what's going to make it hallucinate, right? The logic in the model.
Do they
is
really
what
know
makes it
why it's
hallucinate.
hallucinating?
Yes, they do know why they hallucinate. If you
okay.
make a model that's deterministic, that's called the greedy algorithm, and it always gives you the same answer, and that's boring, and it tends to just get stuck in a loop. So they just put randomness in each word. That's why it hallucinates. It doesn't always choose the best word. It has a chance of choosing a less likely word just to create a pleasing variation and simulate text written by a human that has a chain of thought. These models don't understand anything and they don't think. They just cheat on the Turing test, producing output that resembles something a human could have written.
Right, because it doesn't understand context. And it'll
It doesn't
keep coming back
understand
to
nouns.
things.
It doesn't understand
Even if you
any
tell
of
it
the
the content,
words.
it loses content. I'm like, no, that's not a finding. Like, we've
Right.
been through this. It's not a finding
Right.
because this is how the device is used, right? And it lacks that real world human type context, right? And once you know that, I think you can use it more effectively.
It reminds me of a movie that came out. I don't know. Well, I'm looking at the IMDb result. There's a movie that I remember where the premise of the movie is in the culture, the world that they're living in, nobody lies. And somebody figures out how to lie. It's called The Invention of Lying. I don't know if anybody remembers that movie, has ever seen it.
What did you say, Mandy?
Was that, oh, well, I was going to say, like, my first talk at DerbyCon went through part of, like, with me having to, well, the way I chose to rebuild my neurological system and only understanding what I termed the electrical signatures of people's intent and nothing with their words and nothing else on top of what was going on. And since I couldn't speak or move or anything, my point in all of that was basically what Jeff is saying is that the underlying intention and the mass of integrity of the individual who is coding, it goes into what they are doing. So what he's saying, and going along those lines, and I had kind of brought this up too, was that going toward actually autistic individuals who are literally pre-primed with exceedingly high levels of justice and uprightness, looking for that and not wanting any glory, not caring that much about money, not wanting those other things, do have a certain skill set that translates very deeply to what Jeff is talking about. And I do think that, like he's saying, for long term is helpful in the overall progress. I mean, going back to just that last, Paul's last article, what was the one where the guy referenced it as the AI creators were making it like a religious fervor? Do you remember that comment? He was saying that
There are AI creators, Mandy, I'm sorry, I don't mean to step in, but like there are AI creators that have almost religious experiences about their stuff. So they believe that they're thinking, they believe that they're, praying, whatever. Just sorry. It's getting crazy.
They need to watch more Star Trek.
They're falling in love with the code, right?
Well, they're falling in love with the experience they're having, which is just seeing themselves back. Like
there's a great clip from Silicon Valley though that I saw recently that I forgot was in that show, where one of the characters was like, "Oh, I met this woman, and I looked at her Java code, and it was so moving, and I was just so turned on by the way that she wrote the code." And he looks at one of his coworkers, and he's like, "Wait, was it this code?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I wrote that code. So what you're saying is you're in love with my code." And he's like, "No, my God, I'm so grossed out. No, I'm in love with her." He's like, "No, you're in love with my code. Get over it."
No,
Such
this is
a great
classic
show.
narcissism. This was Narcissus. He fell in love with his own reflection in the water.
Yeah.
And that's fair, Sam, and that was interesting because I'd done a lot of research before about narcissism and back to like the fundamental aspects or the human code that develops those, and especially as it relates to autistic traits and how and why they are not the same as narcissism, even if it appears the same on the surface. But it's very true. And I've looked back to your article. I wanted to find that comment.
It's interesting though, the thought that you're provoking is that when AI writes code, it is without a soul or a feeling, right? That it is so much so that you can tell when code is generated by AI versus a human. And what's interesting is when code's written by a human, and I've actually done this and experienced this. I've been on a project where multiple people have contributed code. I can tell by the way the code is written who wrote it, right? Because it's kind of their
it's
in
imbued
their soul, it's in
with
their personality.
their combination of factors.
And AI lacks that soul of personality. So when it writes code, it's very, of course, machine-like. And that's one of the things that I go back in and I add that personality,
the personality
fist.
into the code.
It's the fist of the coder. The radio operators, Jeff, you know what I'm talking about. The specific way that Morse code operators would do.
Right.
The fist. And that you're talking about the coding fist, the idiosyncrasies that every coder adds.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I use white space. He uses tabs.
Well, and also there's no lazy. A lot of the benefit of AI is there's no laziness in it. It will create that very verbose, well-documented, error-checking kind of code. And like, to be honest, most people don't code that way.
Bear with me on this. I think it's a true statement. I'm thinking about what Sam said about why AI hallucinates, and it's because of boredom. Narcissists get bored. My best friend from high school is extremely on the autism scale. I don't think I cannot remember a time in the 45 years I've known him that he's ever been bored. So again, I would love to see an AI agent built only with the influences of people that are autistic.
Right.
I agree.
I would be tempted to touch AI for that very reason.
It's interesting, Jeff, because that's exactly where I stayed around security and did more on that, was with that mindset, and even doing like the Gula Tech grants and stuff. Thankfully, there are other companies that are recognizing the talent and the skill and the reasons aside from just productivity that autistic people could bring to, because then, it is imbued. And there's times like for me personally, and I will tell my bot that I'm talking to, I'm like, I need to discuss this. I need to go through these rapid things. And I will tell it like, I am talking to you because I personally need the speed of your processing free from additional layers of emotional and mental and human experience things that I have to filter through all the time. So it actually it reduces.
It gets very
pain.
mechanical. It gets very mechanical and loses the personality to the point where we're all making that it's not sentient, that it's not
sentient, but it helps.
Because so recently I gave it a whole bunch of scripts that I wrote, and I'm like, I go through all these and like clean them up, and it added all these very mechanical things and almost removed the Paul Asadorian personality from those scripts, which is kind of it's interesting. In a way, it made it better, but it also kind of removed that the human personality element.
Let's skip to Star Trek Next Generation. Is Data sentient?
No.
I would say yes.
Yes. I would say no.
I think he thought he wasn't.
Right.
He thought he wasn't, but outsiders looking in always encouraged him that he was, Jeff. And
they did, but that doesn't mean he was.
That doesn't mean he was. Right, you're right. It doesn't mean he was, but the writing was everyone else who was an actual human being encouraged Data that he was sentient.
What is the definition of sentient, Jeff?
That's the problem.
Ooh, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And how wide does it go?
We call people
I think, therefore I am.
Feelings more, but what Data struggled with was feelings, morals, and values.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And apparently hair on his arm.
Humans vary a lot, and we regard them all as sentient, so it's just an arbitrary place where you want to cut it off. I mean, at some point, humans are so damaged, maybe you don't think they're sentient anymore. Maybe you think animals are sentient. We just We haven't
I'm
defined
pretty
the
sure
term.
half of the country thinks the other half is not sentient. And it works in both directions.
Yeah, we're not going there. But there's sapient, there's sentient, and are there degrees of sentience? This is awkward. Back in the old days, like my grandfather ran a lot of New York City special education division, and they literally had different books and rules and regulations based on IQ. So there were kids that were, the term was imbecile, and they had different ways of handling them. Now, some of it was practical.
I haven't heard that term in a long time.
Yeah,
it's like a dying term.
It was a formal term back then, and some of it was practical. Like, okay, kids that are at this level of IQ, they're going to drool a lot. Okay, things like that, and they need to be pottied. Kids at this level are mainstreamable, except for a bad leg or whatever. So there's all different levels, and is that a level thing? Like, I don't know. It's weird.
I want to go back to science fiction for a moment, talking about story number 8 really quick. Fans of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which I think is most of us because we're nerds. We released at Eclipsium version
4.2.
We're fans. We're fans of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy at Eclipsium. We always have been. And when 4.2 release came out, marketing and the whole company was behind the let's go all in, and we call it the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's an interesting way, I think, to present the data. I love the way my team has presented the data that we collected, all of the firmware we collect, all the binaries we collect. There's a lot of stats in there. We even have our own towels, which I have, which I gotta go grab before the end of the show and show you. They say "Don't panic" on the towel.
You mean we're not all getting one a towel for Christmas in our stocking?
I will.
Don't panic towel.
Maybe come see us at a conference. This isn't
Eclipsium
something.
swag boxes would be cool.
That would be cool.
We spent a lot of time and money getting all this stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up in a lot of people's hands, not just this year, but moving into 2026. Because they're awesome. They're awesome. Big orange bold lettering. Don't panic. Towels. One of the stats. So we worked on a lot of stats to kind of support this campaign. And one of them is that firmware is getting larger and incorporating more software and libraries, expanding the attack surface. And we have very specific examples of firmware that maybe has like 10 binaries in it, all the way to like tens and thousands of binaries that have exploded the attack surface. And it's one of the trends that I'm noticing as well, is that the firmware is incorporating a lot of these languages and frameworks, such as Python, such as Node and React, in Lua scripts, for example. All of this being incorporated into firmware that greatly increases the attack surface, but also incorporates the supply chain aspect of it as well. That was for me a chilling stat, that firmware is increasing its attack surface, not decreasing, but increasing, in the fact that we can incorporate a Python framework. We can incorporate a React framework inside of our firmware. Great functionality. However, huge attack surface that you're opening up inside of that. So some really cool, obviously self-serving, but the marketing team at Eclipsium just did a great job. Everything from the Hitchhiker's Guide, that moniker, to the Don't Panic towels. Nerds like us are going to love this stuff.
Is there a point when the firmware gets so large because it's loaded with software that it's not firmware anymore?
I agree, Jeff. Yep. I think there's a tipping point.
I'm struggling with the distinction, what is sentient? What is firmware? If it's running a bunch of software.
Yeah,
firmware.
It's different than software. Question. I love this question because it affords me the luxury of making the joke that what's interesting is when I first joined Eclipsium, I read an article, and I think it was Dan Guden's article, Sam, to your point. It was Dan Guden's article on something firmware related. And on page 3 of the comments, Someone made the statement that firmware is just software that's inconvenient to program.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never forgotten that statement. Right?
Well,
because I'm like, that is just such the perfect way to describe firmware. However, Jeff, to your point, as firmware becomes more complex and has all these other capabilities, at what point does it not become firmware and just another Linux distribution that has a bunch of vulnerabilities?
Well, I mean, part of this is based on, when I was first at NSA in the late 80s, that's back in the 1900s.
All right, while you do that, I'm going to grab a towel and take a bathroom break. Hold
okay,
on,
go grab the
back.
towel
You
while I'm waxing lyrical.
Do you need the towel for the bathroom break?
Don't
emotional
ask.
support towel.
I was dabbling in.
All I could think of was hidey ho, neighbor.
You want to listen, Josh? I do have a story here. He's got the towel, but he hasn't gone to the bathroom yet. Okay. I was dabbling in. I had customers asking to do stuff with software. They wanted to write a software program to do some cryptography, and of course, I was told by the very smart old people, we don't do that. We just do hardware. There's no such thing as software. It's all hardware. And so I've always been kind of conflicted over this thing between hardware and software. And then firmware comes along. I have no idea what that is.
Well, firmware is obviously the opposite of software, man. It's right in the name. Jeez.
Is it opposite or is it somewhere in the middle between hardware and software?
The
software doesn't run without hardware, does it?
Well, what would you do with software without hardware?
Use firmware?
No.
Well, and to be clear, the distinction that was being made back in those days was NSA built little black boxes that were self-contained, and you would put data in, and code and crypto and cipher would come out. So, that to them was hardware. Whatever was going on inside, it was self-contained, and plain text went in and cipher came out. That was their definition. That was there's some practical application of what they meant by hardware.
Wait, is this going along the whole train of floppy disks not being floppy?
Oh God, don't go there. Okay, no. Let's.
They're floppy on the inside. There's little 3.5-inch floppies.
They have pills for that. Anyway,
floppy on the inside. They were flexible.
So Jeff, there's a piece of encryption hardware that does not use, I don't believe, any software. No, it does. Never mind. It's a pad-o-matic. You hit the button and it prints you out a one-time pad. So, and I think it uses an ESP32 and a random number generator to do that, which is exactly what a one-time pad is supposed to be, a set of random numbers, right?
Yep.
And
characters. Doesn't have to be numbers.
True. In this case, I think it's just numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's hardware with an ESP32. So it's firmware. I don't think it has software.
So since you bring it up, Paul, if I can interject a personal story here, reach behind you and grab the wooden whiz wheel.
That's hardware with no software or firmware.
So this is a wooden model of the whiz wheel that I invented back in the 80s that was used by Special Forces. And there's some guy in Florida that makes these wooden replicas of all sorts of cryptographic devices. And there was a guy that approached him some years ago that was an instructor at one of the Army war colleges that wanted to preserve the history of the whiz wheel, got him to make them, gave him an incomplete, not completely accurate history. If there'd have been ChatGPT, I would have blamed it on ChatGPT back then. But a couple of weeks ago, I connected with somebody on LinkedIn, and the guy starts talking to me, and he says, "Oh, by the way, I'm the guy that got the guy in Florida to make the replicas of the whiz wheel." So I've met this guy, virtually, but I've connected with him.
That's super cool, dude.
And he wants to, now that he knows who I am, he wants to go back to the guy and get him to tell the accurate story and give credit. What's cooler though is this guy's a Army chief warrant officer. He's a CW5, so that's pretty high up on the food chain of warrant officers. I don't think you can go higher than a 5. Former Special Forces. He's a longtime instructor. He's been in the Army for 40 years. I think he's still active duty, if that's possible. He's doing work with the Philippine Special Forces. They were looking for a cheap and dirty secure encryption system. He's talked them into generating one-time pads again, and they're going to start manufacturing whiz wheels to use with one-time pads. So it's still relevant and going to be used.
Are you shitting me? Seriously?
I'm totally serious.
We need to figure out how
we need replicas.
We need to 3D print. I mean, the wooden ones this is very special.
Right.
A lot of things on set here are very special to us for many different reasons, right? And this is very special because it's a replica of a piece of history, and it's made out of wood and handcrafted. But I think it would be also cool to be able to 3D print and make available the files to 3D print.
I know Hat wants to 3D print them. He hasn't done it yet.
Yeah, we should work on that.
Yeah. Anyway,
that's amazing. Yeah,
my little small contribution to the Special Forces history. And he was telling me stories about how vital, because he used to use the one-time pad without the wheel, and when he got a hold of the wheel, it was golden. And he said, it was coveted. Everybody loved it. And this is stuff I'm learning decades later, that it really made a big difference to
that is so good.
Special Forces teams.
Wow. I'm
that
so happy
and I'm stuck doing PCI.
And you do PCI. I'm going to interject a personal part, and it does relate to Paul's story here on the Hitchhiker's Guide. Interestingly, in 2020, I got to submit suggestions for changes to update the 40-year anniversary edition of that book, of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
No way. Seriously?
Seriously.
That's cool.
I'll tell you what, though.
H2G2 for life, baby.
Speaking for someone that ADHD, listening to books, I have a much better experience than trying to read, sit down and read a book. The audio book for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I listened to one of the ones on Audible many years ago. Absolutely amazing book to listen to. Amazing.
I agree.
Was kindergarten your favorite grade, Paul? Where they had story time every day?
Not necessarily. I don't know. Having ADHD, I
think third grade.
Kind of glad to be done with school, to be honest with you. Like when I graduated college, I'm like, this is great. I can just go do what I like,
right?
Rather than what people are trying to tell me to do, and study in school. I think that's a lot of people with ADHD.
Well, that makes sense, Paul, because it was originally a radio show. The book came later.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The radio show was
just a great production.
Yeah.
And there's probably different versions of it, and I don't remember which one I listened to, but whatever version I listened to, it's a great listen, right? And
was it read with a British accent?
I may have even tried to read the actual
Yeah.
book. The audio book is amazing for Hitchhiker's Guide. Yeah.
Cool.
I don't listen to audiobooks anymore. They're too slow. But that one was
listen at double speed, man.
I can't.
Still too slow.
Too slow.
I use applications that make it faster. And also is better is using I also on my laptop have an extension that will speed. Yeah. So any player device that's going on, I can adjust the speed, including that. And the other thing that really helps if you do want to try reading it is to use something like Spreeder, where you can it'll be 1 or 2 or 5 words at a time, and it stays in one place, and you can do it up to like 400 words per minute. It's much nicer.
I do that naturally when I read. When I had time to read, like going on a plane is a pain in the ass before Kindle because I had to bring 4 books. So yeah, I get it. But yeah, I'd love to hear the extensions you use. That'd be awesome. Mandy, if you don't mind, send them to me, please. No,
Sam, I want to talk about your story number 1. A developer accidentally found CSAM data and AI data. I don't know if we covered this last week, but we've touched on it, and I think it speaks to using very large corporate services versus not.
For the elderly, what does CSAM stand for?
Child sexual abuse material. And see, the issue here is he was trying to make a nude detector, which is being built into modern phones. So it will detect when you're sending a nude picture or receiving one. And so they have to train an AI on that. So you need a huge database of nude pictures. And there is a standard one used by hundreds of academics. And this guy looked carefully at it and discovered that some of the pictures are of underage people. And so he reported it. And the result is his own account got banned at Google for having the data.
This is the ban hammer by large corporations that don't understand the context, and probably largely AI that is doing that.
Yeah,
which makes me very nervous to use large enterprises services for things like Google Photos, Google Drive to store data, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, because they employ these AI models that identify something. Oh, that's bad. You know what? Your account's gone. And it's like, I have little kids. I was taking pictures of them when they were in the bathtub or whatever. And it's like, nope, that's not
That's
cool.
kiddie porn.
All your data's gone. Yeah, all your data's gone.
Or just no
And-
reason at all. This keeps happening to people's Facebook and
Yes.
Google accounts. They're just
Yes.
taken down. They can't even find out why. They didn't do anything wrong. This happened to me. YouTube kept threatening to take me down. So I tried to put my lectures on Daily Motion. And I put up the first lecture and they banned me completely. I have no idea why. So it's
You got to go to Pornhub. That's when you go to Pornhub. You just got to put your lectures on Pornhub. We've talked about that before, right? There was a woman who had like physics lectures or something on Pornhub.
There's a guy who has an extensive knowledge of World War I firearms and you know,
Yeah, a lot of the
everything about
firearms
World War
community
I.
got off YouTube and went to different platforms. Does he put it
Went
on
to-
YouTube? Pornhub?
No, he
rather?
puts it on Pornhub.
Yeah.
And he makes good money. And he's like, and people like, what are you looking at Pornhub for? World War I rifles.
for
Okay.
firearms. Hey man, look, we titled what's called the Security Weekly News today. We called that Hack Naked TV. And I swear, because you don't, again, to Sam's point, like you just get banned and you don't know why. Our YouTube account was constantly, like not constantly, but like 2 or 3 times coming under some scrutiny. And it was only my ability to work the back channels and work my connections to go like, hey, you folks see this content, like it's nothing that can't be on YouTube. I think it's just the name, maybe the logo, and we got cleared, fairly quickly.
It's tripping the automated sensor things. And then somebody looks and goes, yeah, fine. And it's
if
an
it
indicator.
reaches a human, they're like, oh yeah, and this is the we had this debate between AI and humans, right? This is the huge difference.
Unless it's like the listener that reached out and said they got in trouble for looking at SANS and listening to Paul's Security Weekly, even though it got to the human.
Hacking content.
The human
Hacking
still said it was
content.
hacking content.
We get classified, and we have since we
And it's
first
not.
created this show, Mandy. We
Right.
have been on listed. This is hacking content, and if you implement any of the like pre-canned filters for whatever platform you're using that looks and categorizes hacking content, will be included in that, and you can't get there. I was at a soccer event for my son and using their Wi-Fi, doing my daily work, and I went to go to a website and it's like, well, you can't get there. Like that's hacking content. And I'm like, I need to look this up. This is what I do for a living. And then I fired up my VPN and everything was fine. But speaking to the ban hammer and how it doesn't work, there you have it. So, but going back to using these larger companies to store your data, they're going to use AI and automated processes to classify and then ban accounts. There's a huge section of the open source and Linux community that is really, really enthusiastic about building your own infrastructure. I think is it Nextcloud? Is that what they call it? Nextcloud? Like you can build it all on your own. But again, all things open source. Freedom and liberty is great, but much of that responsibility to build and maintain it is on your own. And I think that's why we gravitate towards it's so much easier to use like Google Drive and Google Photos. However, you need backup plans for that because of this filtering in the ban hammer.
I'm intrigued though with Sam's
Wait for the
story
AI banhammers.
about what constitutes child sexual abuse material. I mean, how are they? What kind of things are they training the AI to look for? And the fact that they used a collection of material that was called NudeNet. How do you teach an AI what is nudity?
Well, you have to teach.
Wouldn't it just be giving
Never
parameters
thought
on
about
the
this
imaging?
before.
What constitutes nudity?
Yeah, you have to teach it what's nudity,
Specific
and then you have to
regions.
somehow train it to identify the age of the individual.
Right. Well, and I mean, I think what's probably the imprecise part is like you said, you could have pictures of kids in the bathtub, babies, baby taking a bath type of thing.
Right.
Not provocative for most people, but something that's sexually
doesn't matter
abusive
though, Jeff. Doesn't matter. Provocative.
I know it doesn't matter, but I'm trying.
No, he's saying
trying
on
to
his
think,
side,
how
if
do
you
you
have one,
how do you
yeah,
train
how
an
would you?
AI to look for something? Yes, Josh. What do you think?
Oh, no.
Or
I've
you're
got to
just
drop. I
waving?
apologize. I have kids running
I
rampant.
thought
So
you
I
were
must
saying
run.
goodbye.
So talk to y'all
No
later.
worries.
Bye.
All right,
Thanks, Josh.
Merry, happy holidays. I thought he was raising his hand to make a point.
No, I thought he was waving.
Yeah, I had to unfortunately have this conversation, with kids that, teenage boys especially, get crazy in their private chats and stuff like that. And I'm like, look, like it's one of the unfortunate hard lines in cybersecurity that we all learn, I think, very early on in our careers in cybersecurity, that CSAM material, there's no leeway. If you see it, you have to report it. And
Sure.
It doesn't matter the nature of it. If there's underage people in anything that could be deemed inappropriate, it's CSAM, you have to report it.
And I get that, and I get the need to sort of err on the side of being very cautious and conservative in the interpretation.
Unfortunately, it's all,
but it's based on. But there's also before AI, there's people that had to go out and look for it and and make the determination. And I mean, I can remember talking to certain people that have been banned from the industry about how hard it is to do that, and the PTSD that comes from it, and just how disturbing it can be.
People can't work in that context for any extended period of time. I mean, I personally know folks that work for law enforcement that have been involved with that, and there's two things that are just mind-blowing for me. One is how common it is. Local law enforcement was making an arrest pretty much every week based on CSAM material. That's how common it is. So if you weren't aware of that, that's how common that it is. The other striking thing is that folks can't really work in that context for any extended period of time. They have to cycle out because of psychological issues. And it's one of those things we don't often talk about, but it's happening. And I think it's amazing when we can find it and prosecute the people that are doing it, but how rampant it is just, it's so sickening, right? It's so sickening how rampant it is today. It has been for some time. I mean, this is starting from the beginning of my career. That's been when I talk to people. These investigations have been ongoing and constant to the point where, Rhode Island's a small state, but like arrest reports would come out and people, I know that person. I've known that person. I went to high school with that person, and they're being arrested because of CSAM related charges. Awful stuff.
I feel like we need to end this
on a better
episode
note
on a higher note.
On a higher note than that. 100%.
I didn't put it up. I don't know if you've picked up, or any of you guys have picked up on Joe Gray's appeals on LinkedIn.
I did.
Yeah, I did.
Maybe we could close out on that sort of as a public appeal.
Yeah, it's interesting. It kind of ties to, Sam, what you were saying about your students having trouble finding work. I think a lot of people that getting into the field, or people that have experience, are still having a tough time finding work.
Well,
And I
and
think anything we
currently,
can do
especially
as a
for,
community, right, to
yeah,
help people find work. If you're hiring, um, if you're looking for work, let's network together to find people jobs. I think we maybe have been blessed for some time where folks in cybersecurity have been in demand. I feel like the tides have changed for all the reasons, Sam, I
no,
think
there's been a
we
lot
mentioned
of,
before, right? That it's
yeah,
a much tougher market. And I don't want the tough market to exclude people that have a good work ethic in addition to great experience like Joe Gray from getting a job.
So Joe Gray's looking for a job. He's been looking for a job for a while, and he's gotten to the point where he's facing eviction. He was worried that, his kids weren't going to have a Christmas. Somebody that saw that set up a GoFundMe. We should get the links and put it up on the show notes to
I
just
think it's
try
in
to
my,
tide him over.
my ex, yeah.
And the big thing is he needs a job, and he's incredibly sharp, incredibly gifted. He's been on the show a couple times, not recently.
Yeah, he used to work for CRA.
Yep. Real sharp guy. I'm surprised that
He's who introduced me to Paul.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, I mean, I haven't seen him in a while in person, and the last time I saw him, I want to say it was in Rochester last year when I spoke at B-Sides Rochester. He happened to be there. He was doing some kind of training work for some government military type of establishment or something like that. But it was gig work, it was contract work. So he, and I'm sure there's many others. I don't want to call him out in particular, but there's many people that are looking for jobs right now, as well as people looking for entry-level positions.
Yeah.
So,
And I think, my oldest son looking for a job, and in all of those looking for jobs, I think one of the ways many of us have gotten jobs is because you know someone, because you network, right? We've talked about that, getting into cybersecurity. We're going to talk more about it on Friday morning, about how you get into the field, how you get a job. And a lot of it is network. And I'm not saying Joe's not networking,
right.
He has, and he still is. Of course, he's putting himself out there. But to all of you looking for a job, networking is important. And also, I think the flip side of that is those of us that have jobs that are working in the industry have to be proactive in looking for talent to bring that in, to identify. And I'm thinking for like folks that work with me at Eclipsium, like we've hired people because they've done some pretty cool research. And the reason that they work with us today is because someone was their champion that works for, in my example, Eclipsium today, right? Like I work with a lot of talented people. One reason I do that is because they've networked and they brought on people that they know, that they've networked with, and it's worked out really well. So
I think this is a teaser for our next episode, which people will see over the holidays, and we'll record in a couple of days. But we should definitely pick this conversation up again.
And I think on a positive note, like give people a chance. I think a lot of what we've pointed out in the past 25 years of who gets to work in a field and who doesn't, right? Like you got to give people a chance. It shouldn't be, we talked about that, like AI being very mechanical. As humans, you got to identify people that, maybe they don't check all the boxes, or have maybe on paper don't have all the right skills, but attitude and aptitude is the right fit. I've said that so many times on our shows on the Security Weekly Network. Attitude and aptitude is a great indicator of someone that's going to work out.
But
Skills
it's hard
can
to
be
put that
taught.
on paper, and it's hard to
I know.
bubble up that person above the.
Agreed.
Everybody's got the same credentials, and there's 100 people.
And to get, I think it'd be incredibly hard to get through HR departments that really, they, not that they don't care about their job, but they don't care about what the individual role needs.
Yeah. They're just like, you don't have experience in XYZ. It's like, but like they have the attitude and aptitude. They could knock it out of the park in XYZ, and you can teach skills. You can't teach attitude and aptitude.
No.
That's a second potential way where I would get involved if AI could be focused on finding aptitude and talent in people, and in the non-traditional, in our industry, having the right certs, having the right education.
Well, in some ways, I do think it works well like that because of its advanced pattern recognition. Like it is able to make judgments about an individual from how they're interacting with it.
Yeah, but it's not great.
Well, no,
I tell you
it's
what,
something
I was
it's
trying.
going. It's working.
Look, I'll be honest. My son has struggled trying to get a job. Some of the retail stores have this assessment test. I failed the assessment. Not only my son failed the assessment test, I'm like, let me take one. I failed the assessment test. And I'm like, this is not a valid assessment test in any case. Like they're just
either that or you're not qualified to be a checkout.
I'm not qualified to work in retail. That could be it. I'm not qualified to work in retail. Maybe
Once
you
get
that's
to
part
a
of the
certain
problem,
level
right?
of curmudgeon, you really
6'7".
6'7". No,
6'7".
Let's not end that.
Hire people because they're great individuals and nothing more, right? Like I don't know. I've got some. We'll explore more on Friday, but
stay tuned. We'll pick this up again.
Oh, and this kind of goes back to like Jeff's point of like how the hiring practices just do not work for autistic or neurodivergent person in particular. Yep. So it's hard because it's like you have people that are exceedingly well adapted to this particular niche, and yet you have HR in the middle that can't comprehend how to allow them to come together at all.
But I know what we're talking, but spot on, Mandy. Like I think that in taking some of these assessments, I think that they're not taking into account that this person could excel in a particular situation, but can't take a test and explain how they would act in that situation. Those are two different things, right? Because every situation is different.
It's totally different. And there's all kinds of things that like I can adapt to them. I can do them if I just naturally am there and do it. But if somebody asks me to articulate
taking a test, like asking, you're like, I don't know. That depends on the situation. And
but there's also
it's almost excluding people's ability to.
I hate multiple choice tests because there's rarely a right answer. And I can usually argue, why this is wrong, why this is wrong. So 100%. For me, because I had to go get 2 certifications in order to be a QSA a couple of years ago, and I don't publicly acknowledge what certifications I have, but I'm still not a CISSP, but I had to pass multiple choice tests. But I passed them because I found a site where I could take sample questions 10 at a time.
Right, to get what they're looking for.
And I figured out what they were looking for, and I had to just sort of, take a deep breath and like, well, it's not the right answer, but I know it's the answer that they're looking for.
The answer they're looking for is not always the right answer. 100%,
Absolutely.
Jeff.
Yep. And it's so sad because there's certain things where it comes down to literal neurological structures and how the brain works. Like, I know with myself and having to relearn, and I learned this incredibly well, that when you do something by muscle memory or because it's of your own volition, it goes through specific parts of the brain. When you are directed to do something, it goes through completely different parts of the brain. And
if it's muscle memory, technically it doesn't go through the brain, right?
Well, it still has to activate throughout. No, it just comes from a lower base part of it. It just means that the repetition.
It's in there somewhere.
It's becoming more of like a homeostasis. It's just not there yet. But that with neurodivergent brains having so many more, like, sometimes exponentially more constant connections, it's a structural safety that when somebody gives a command, that portion of the brain stops until all the data is there. That's not a bad employee. That's that you need to, you as the owner, like, need to pull out.
Why are all the stupid people called normal and all of us smart people called divergent? Think about
On that note, I want to wish everyone a happy holidays. Thanks for listening and watching Paul Security Weekly.
Over and out.
And
6,
out.
7.
6, 7. Come on, Sam, do it too. Come on, Sam, you know you want to.